How's it going, everybody? You're very welcome to the Shabeen, our first live stream of the year 2023. Happy New Year to you all. We're going to have some crack tonight, lots to talk about, lots to share, lots of news. So get yourself something nice in your glass, something Irish. Find a comfortable chair and get comfortable because you're in for a bit of a session tonight. We're going to have some crack. All right, get ready, get ready. Indeed, in this house we drink Irish whiskey. What else would we be drinking? You're very welcome to the Shabeen. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're going to have some great crack tonight, sharing news of upcoming events, upcoming whiskey collaborations. I'm looking forward to this. Is our first live stream of the year 2023. So happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a safe, happy, Irish whiskey fueled New Year's Eve, and I hope the festivities are continuing for you. They are for me. I've got a drop of the Liberator from Sir Maurice O'Connell. I've got a malt and muscatel finish in my glass at the moment. I'll be moving on to some Jameson single pot still. I've got Powers 3 Swallow on standby. We got lots of whiskies here tonight to talk about, to share, to discuss. I see you sharing with me what you're drinking. So great to read, as always, the comments about what's in your glass. Keep me posted. What have we got here? Gold Spot, David Stewart. Julie's got Killoan Pinot Noir cask. Excellent. Amy, hi Amy and Kevin. Happy New Year to everybody. Liberty's Copper Alley for Amy in the glass. Andrew has Cliffs of Moher. Pedro Jimenez, fantastic. I see somebody else mentioning that here earlier. Bob Hurley, last of the Cliffs of Moher. Pedro Jimenez, bottle 1. Didn't think he could make it last this long. Fair play to you. Fantastic whiskies, the Cliffs of Moher whiskies. I'll talk about them in a second. We were very lucky to get those this year. What are we going to talk about this evening? We're going to talk about upcoming in-person events in the United States over the next 5 weeks. We're going to talk about collaborations that we've got coming down the pipe. Our next whiskey, we've got our Cliffs of Moher whiskey out in the market that you've all been enjoying over the past few weeks. We've got another whiskey to announce tonight. We've got some whiskey predictions for 2023 that I'm going to share with you. I'd like to hear your thoughts about what you'd like to see happen in the world of Irish whiskey over the next year. But worth us acknowledging a great 2022 for the world of Irish whiskey. I hope it was great for you. It's always the case in a group of our size that we're at various stages of the week, the month, the year. We're all experiencing different things, highs, lows, good, bad, challenges, successes. I hope 2022 ended as well as could be expected for you. And if it didn't, that 2023 will be better for you. I know life can be tough for many people at many times. And so if there's any bright spark for 2023, we hope it's there for you. And we're looking forward to sharing, coming together in as many ways as we can to be a community for each other around Irish whiskey, that thing we love. And not just because it is alcohol. I'm always keen to share that for me, and I think for many of you as well, it's the people, it's the places behind the pours that make this whiskey and make this community so special. So looking forward to sharing lots more community events virtually and in person over the next year, because I think that's what really has mattered to many people over the past year as well. So 2022 is gone. It's behind us. Some highs for the world of Irish whiskey and for our community. We had some amazing meetups over the last year. We met in person in New York. We had 4 whiskeys released in the last year. We had our first whiskey for our whiskey club, which was the Crack from Two Stacks Irish Whiskey, a fantastic single grain, 12-year-old single grain. And then we had 3 whiskies from the Cliffs of Moher collaboration with JJ Corrie, with Louise McGuan and the team at JJ Corrie near the end of the year there. So we had 4 great whiskies. We had our whiskey bus where we took 30 thirsty folks around Ireland to 9 different distilleries, 16 pubs, 63 pours of whiskey over the course of a week. We had our community grew. We had the first full year of our whiskey club. We got to share many great events and launches and meet some of the great people behind Irish whiskey and understand some of their vision and things that they're working on. So it was a great year for Irish whiskey, for Stories and Sips. We're very thankful for your support and for all of the friendships that have been made over the past year. As the community has grown, it's become harder certainly from my side anyway, it's become harder to maintain lots of one-on-one messages and kind of friendships with the group. It's difficult to get to all the messages all the time. But hopefully by having events like this every week and then virtual meetups, in-person meetups, we get a chance to come together as much as possible, but hoping we can do a lot more of that in 2023. Cliffs of Moher, Kieran's drinking Cliffs of Moher, very good. Kevin's got a Redbreast 15, excellent. Yeah, so many of you drinking the Cliffs of Moher. Those three whiskies blew my mind. I knew when we started the collaboration with Louise all the way back in July of 2022. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our collaboration, we just released 3 whiskies through our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, 70 bottles of each whiskey, 210 in total, and 3 whiskies that spent almost 3 months, 2 months and a bit maturing. After their 6 years of aging in bonded warehouses, they spent almost 3 months on top of the Cliffs of Moher, the world famous UNESCO heritage site, 700 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, where they soaked in the environment, the climate, the moisture. The 50-liter casks did their job of what we would call rapid maturation. You can't speed up time, but you can certainly speed up the effects of wood and whiskey. And that's what happened there in that climate with the smaller casks. A greater surface to liquid ratio allowed some fantastic wood effects from the Oloroso sherry cask and the Palo Cortado and Pedro Jimenez casks to do their work. And we got 3 fantastic whiskies out of it. It was a great journey for us and a great study in wood management and the effects of climate, the effects of smaller casks. And one of the things that has been at the back of my mind since we started the Whiskey Club and our releases was that I wanted to use each release to help us learn, to help us understand more about whether it's a certain whiskey, a distillery, a brand, a style, an area, a region, that each whiskey, each sip had to have a story behind it. And hence why we're called Stories and Sips, of course. And the Cliffs of Moher did that for us. 2 Stacks with the grain whiskey did that for us as well. We learned about grain whiskey and column distillation. And we're going to continue that with our next releases in 2023. We've got stories and great events and projects that are going to go with our next releases. So I'm excited to share those with you in a little bit. So tonight I'm going to talk about some whiskey predictions for 2023. 2022 was a launch pad for us in terms of building our community, starting our community, our first full year of our Whiskey Club, continuing our community of our Facebook group, which is now almost 9,800 people, which is fantastic. Really appreciative of the community there. Some of the nicest people I've ever met are inside that community, and you're here tonight, which is fantastic. And great support you are to everybody learning about Irish whiskey. So the community is there for us to learn, for us to share, for us to connect with each other and answer questions as we have them. 2023 is building on all of that. We've built great relationships with brands, with distilleries, with whiskey companies who want to work with us, who want to do fun things with us. I mean, how lucky are we that we're going to be able to get access to whiskies that nobody else in the world has access to, thanks to the community that's built up around Irish whiskey. So I'm really excited about that. So we've got great things planned, really got some great announcements over the coming months to share with you about things we're going to do. So we're not resting on 2022. 2022 was great. 2023 will be even better. So I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more with you. All right. Check your comments there. Okay, so let's start by looking at some predictions that we've got. So I was trying to think about, I was having this conversation with Louise McGuan of JJ Corrie around the time of our release of the whiskies. And I mentioned to her how I thought that 2022 was this watershed moment for Irish whiskey. It's where we started to see new distilleries come online in terms of their whiskies reaching maturity or them deciding that it was time to release their first whiskies. The likes of Cologne Distillery, for example, their first whiskies went out into the market. Blackwater Distillery in County Waterford went out into the market. We saw lots of firsts in 2022. We saw experimentation. We saw new mash bills. We saw new approaches to every aspect of whiskey making. We saw craft distillers show us what they can do at a small scale, sharing their vision through their liquid. And we had lots of moments like that throughout 2022. I was going through them. There's just so many to mention that I thought, well, where can we possibly go in 2023? And I've got some predictions I'd like to share with you. I've also got some things I'd like to see. So kind of separate to the predictions, I predict certain things happening. There's also things I'd like to see. And then I'm curious as we go through these predictions. And again, these are just my predictions. I don't have any more information than anybody else, but rather just kind of observing the market, observing the industry, and listening and just hearing the chatter and talking to distillers and blenders and marketers and bonders and hearing what they're saying. So kind of sharing some of those predictions. But I would love to know from you, who are hardcore whiskey fans, Irish whiskey fans, what would you like to see happening in 2023? What are you excited about, or what would you hope to see? Because there are distillers and marketers and blenders and whiskey company owners who tune into our show who pay attention and who want to hear what you think as well. So don't hold back on that. So I'll go through some of our predictions anyway. And as we go through the night, keep sharing what's in your glass. And I'm always fascinated to know what you're drinking. Also, if you haven't already done so, do me a favor and click the thumbs up underneath this YouTube video. It helps me. It helps the video get seen. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. The more subscriptions we have, the more people are going to tune in, obviously, and the more chance you have of being notified every time we schedule a new video. I've got lots of videos coming in 2023, short videos. We're going to answer a lot of questions that have been coming our way about Irish whiskey, and we're going to use video to do that. They'll come up on our YouTube channel. They'll be shared across our social media as well. But that's all we ask. Have a like and a subscribe, and that's it. All right. So let's start with some whiskey predictions. Irish whiskey predictions for 2023. Ooh, very fancy. Okay, so the first one is regarding whiskey tourism. For those of you who are familiar with this, the Bourbon Trail and have been to Kentucky and have been to Tennessee and have visited the American whiskey world, it is, I would argue, a more mature tourism offering than the Irish whiskey market has today. Today, the Irish whiskey tourism market is burgeoning. It's young. It is in its infancy. And I think 2023, we're going to see some changes for the positive towards more whiskey, kind of tourism-led whiskey businesses, which would be would be much needed in Ireland. Why do I think that's a prediction for 2023? So a couple of reasons. One, the last 3 years have been a bit of a write-off for the whiskey industry. And in that 3 years, a lot of whiskey companies have come online. Distilleries have come online. Distilleries have been built. And they didn't have the advantage over the past couple of years of the tourism because of the pandemic-related travel restrictions, the changes in people's habits based on the pandemic, any number of things related to pandemics, COVID, war in Ukraine, Russia. All of those things have affected kind of travel. They've affected people coming to Ireland, no doubt. And I think 2023 is going to change that, because we're starting to see shoots of that changing at the tail end of 2022. There have been various efforts over the past few years from all corners of the Irish whiskey industry, from the Irish Whiskey Association, the Irish government, individuals, bloggers, writers, YouTubers, anyone with an interest in Irish whiskey who has wanted to develop the Irish whiskey product in a tourism capacity. And some of those have stuck, some have not. I think 2023, we're going to see more of that, because we're starting to see distilleries that are now taking tourism into consideration right from the planning stage. And there's a picture up here on the screen. I'll make it a little bit larger. This is the Killarney distillery, the new Killarney Brewing and Distilling Company's distillery. It is a 5-minute drive from Killarney in County Kerry, one of the most visited tourist destinations in Ireland. And it is a massive complex, and it is built right on the Ring of Kerry, the most traversed stretch of road that you will find in County Kerry. It's a massive operation: brewery, distillery, gin school, bar, restaurant, conference facilities. It's a destination beyond just, hey, let's see how whiskey is made. You'll see on the left there the scope of it, the size of it, and on the right, you can see it looks out over the Gap of Dunlow. The view from the top floor, from the top level, is absolutely incredible. Looking out, I don't think there's a distillery with that kind of view anywhere in Ireland. And I know that tourism is high on their agenda, and they look at the period between St. Patrick's Day and Labor Day as being their tourism market, because that's when Americans are traveling, and that's when you come and visit Ireland. So I think whiskey tourism is going to see a big shift. Already we're seeing a move towards that. Visitor numbers are up and up in those distilleries that do have visitor experiences. And I hope that these visitor experiences as well do more than just try and capture tourists that are already on a path nearby, but rather build out tourism experiences beyond just here's how fermentation works, here's how distillation works. For anyone who's on our whiskey bus tour in Ireland in August, you will recall how by the time we got to Bushmills at the end, at the second last distillery on our 9 distillery trip, we pretty much had fermentation and distillation figured out. I think you'll agree. And there's only so many times you can hear that. And so I'd like to see more experiences around whiskey and around a distillery and around the place that include whiskey, but not just whiskey itself for the destination. So that's one prediction that I have for 2023. That is the Gap It On Low, Kristen. It is indeed. Looking out on the Gap It On Low. Shannon is taking in more US direct flights. That's a fact. Also, there are direct flights from Cleveland to Dublin, which start in May and are very affordable. So for those of you in Ohio who want to come to Ireland, you can do it leaving Cleveland at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You're in Dublin in the morning time, and then you leave Dublin to fly to Cleveland, I think 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and you're back you're back in Cleveland that night. So really convenient. That's amazing that you'll get direct flights from Ohio to Dublin. So factor that in, and hopefully you'll factor in a bit of whiskey tourism to yourselves. Interestingly, with this one distillery, the Killarney distillery, a little kind of joke around it is, while it's built on the Gap of Dun, or it's built on the Ring of Kerry, which is a much traveled road for tour buses. So if you are coming to Ireland on a package tour, on a bus tour, and you have Killarney on your destination list, you will drive the Ring of Kerry on a one-way system. The buses leave Killarney in the morning. They go out around fully around the Gap of Dunlow and back into Killarney. They pass the distillery as probably their first stop. And the only challenge for the poor distillery is that it's 8 o'clock in the morning when they probably start that trip. So the chances of there being a huge appetite for whiskey at 8 o'clock in the morning, well, you can argue there's no bad time for sampling whiskey, but I'd say they probably prefer if it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the way home, they could actually have the distillery stop instead. But nevertheless, it'll be an exciting stop for many who are traveling on the on that path around the Ring of Kerry. I know a few of you have done that already too. David said it's challenging to get direct flights from LA. David, you can do LA to London, and I know it's a long flight, but you can do LA to London, and you can do London to Cork, London to Dublin, London to Shannon, London to Belfast. But it is challenging. Time-wise, it's challenging. I've done the San Diego to, I mean, San Diego's harder because I can't fly direct out of San Diego to anywhere in Europe. I'm having to go San Diego, Detroit, or New York, and then on. So yeah, I know time-wise it's a big challenge. All right, next up in my predictions we're going to see different yeast strains being used. So there's only 3 ingredients in whiskey: water, grain, and yeast. That's it. You combine those things together in different quantities over different times, age them in oak or any type of wood that we want to use in Ireland over a period of at least 3 years, and we get hundreds and hundreds of different variations of whiskey. We talk a lot about the grain. We talk a lot about the barley. We talk a lot about the maize, the corn. We talk about oats. We talk about rye. We occasionally talk about the water. We talk about it falling out of the sky 365 days of the year. That's why we have such great whiskey culture in Ireland, because we have no shortage of ingredients. The water falls directly from the sky. The grain grows out of the ground thanks to that water. But the third ingredient that we don't talk about a lot, and there's a reason that we don't, is yeast. And the reason we don't talk about it is because it has become commoditized over the past 50 years. Most distilleries are using the same strain of yeast. They use a distiller's yeast. It's the same strain, has been up until this point, up until the last few years. However, we're starting to see some move away from that. Yeast, for those not familiar with its role in the purpose in the production of whiskey, is that yeast is a microorganism whose job is to absorb the sugars that are exposed through the malting process, or through the malting process that are in the grain, take those sugars and convert them into alcohol. Byproduct would also be carbon dioxide, heat. But yeast is the piece of the pie, the piece of the puzzle that we need to make the alcohol, to turn that water and barley into the beer that we want, that low alcohol beer that eventually becomes a high alcohol spirit. Yeast is very, very important. Not only does it convert the sugars into alcohol, It is responsible for flavor creation. Any brewer you'll ever meet will tell you that don't mind the distillers. The distillers don't create any flavor. They only concentrate the flavor that's made during brewing, during the fermentation stage. You can have that argument all day long about who creates flavor, but I wholeheartedly am behind the flavor creation happening at the brewing stage. How long is your fermentation? Do you have a single fermentation, a double fermentation, malolactic fermentation? It's the yeast's job there to create flavor from the work it's doing. It's like a catalyst. And so if you use different strains, you're going to get different flavors. Clonakilty Distillery experimenting with different strains. Killowen Distillery experimenting with different strains. Middleton Distillery experimenting with different strains. Teeling. Bushmills uses a different strain. There are experiments happening at different distilleries in different quantities and scales. So I think we're going to see more being talked about, and I hope we do, about yeast. Because it gets forgotten about, and craft distillers, now that there are so many of them popping up around Ireland, I think are going to lead us down a path where we get to explore yeast a little bit more, and good that we do, because we've explored wood, we've explored barley, we've explored distillation, but the brewing stage, this is a really interesting one, and I think that we need to learn more about it. So it's a prediction for me in 2023. We're going to learn more about it. Okay. Next, what other predictions do I have? Non-standard Irish whiskies. What do I mean by non-standard Irish whiskies? I think we're going to see more Irish whiskies that don't bear the style of Irish whiskey on the label. And by style, I mean blended Irish whiskey, single pot still or pot still Irish whiskey, malt whiskey, grain whiskey. There's another category that doesn't get talked about and it gets looked over. But you can live outside of those categories and still be an Irish whiskey. So every style of Irish whiskey, pot still, malt, and grain, and then when you combine two or more of them together, you create a blend. Each of those has their defined parameters for how they can be made. In other words, how much barley or malted barley must be used, how much unmalted barley can be used, let's say in the case of pot still whiskey, in the case of grain whiskey, how much can and can't be used, and on and on. So each of those styles has a protection in European law. But outside of those, you can actually still have a whiskey that's not made those ways that can be called Irish whiskey. So long as it is a distilled spirit made from a mash of cereal, of grain, that has been aged in oak, not oak, any wood, oak and cherry, acacia, mulberry, you name it, any type of wood, for at least 3 years on the island of Ireland, it can be called Irish whiskey. We've had many of them in 2022. In fact, 2022 was the year where we saw them hit the market. For example, Method of Madness, Ryan Malt, Shorecross whiskey, Ryan Malt, Killowen whiskey is a mixed mash bill, which is just an Irish whiskey, right? Baron Tool, that is a Irish whiskey, but it's not a malt, it's not a pot still, it's not a grain, it's not a blend. So I think we're going to see more of those. I don't think it actually matters to as many people as we might think that a whiskey is called a certain style. I think we get very hung up. Is it a malt? Is it a pot still? And I'd argue that the term Irish whiskey bears the most weight. And then under that, the style, right? So the first thing is Irish whiskey. After that, is it malt? Is it pot still? But now that you've got craft distillers introducing mixed mash bills, like 60% malt, 40% rye, which don't fit the criteria for pot still whiskey, for grain whiskey, for malt whiskey, that's opening up a whole new opportunity to us to create these mixed mash bill whiskeys. That's interesting. And I think we're going to see more of them in 2023, because I know that there are distilleries that are playing around with mixed mash bills that live outside of the traditional categories of malt, pot still, grain, and blends. That was for Middleton to release a non-standard Irish whiskey from the micro distillery from Method of Madness indicates, well, it was really a kind of a watershed moment for the industry to see that the big elephant, the giant, the big mom in the room, Middleton, was kind of giving the thumbs up to a mixed mash bill. That's a good thing. I think we're going to see more of that. Is it good? That's my criteria, says Jason. 100%. Like, that has to be our criteria. Is it a good whiskey? But we'll talk more about the styles in a second, because I want to get on to pot still whiskey, because we're going to see it's interesting. Like, this is interesting. It's getting really interesting now, I think, in the world of craft distilling. Let me see. Stacey says maybe this will force the change to the single pot still technical file. Yeah, so look, I think the petitions have been made to the Irish government to expand the technical file. I think it'll happen. It's just a matter of time. I don't think it needs to be the catch-all for everything, though. I think that there's a great space for experimentation with mixed mash bills, and we should always be in pursuit of flavor. Flavor, quality, value, then tell me what it's called. You know what I mean? Like, because just the phrase single malt or single pot still is no guarantee of quality, isn't it? We've all had good and bad versions of each of those. There was a question there. I missed it. Kristen asks, so does a rye and malt mean that the rye and malt are mixed in the mash and not that a rye and a malt whiskey are blended into a final product? Precisely. Exactly that. Yeah. So the mash itself is mixed, and that's relatively new in modern times. You go back 100 years, I mean, mixed mash bills were the standard, right? Now we had more of a standardization over the past few years of what a pot still was, and what a malt was, and what a grain was. Now we're going to start seeing more exploring outside the lines, outside the box. All right, what's the next prediction? More peated whiskies. Folks, we are going to see more peated whiskies, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, because I now like them. No, that's not a reason. There are a number of distilleries that have been working on peated whiskies for the last few years. And so take, for example, Sleeve League, the Ardra distillery, home of Sleeve League distillers. They are a 100% smoky peated distillery. They're not going to make anything else. They're making smoky and peated malt, smoky and peated pot still whiskies. And they will come to market in the next few years. 2023, we're going to see more come online, not just from distilleries, but from smaller brands, smaller bonders and whiskey companies that don't own their own distilleries. And the reason why is the picture on the right-hand side. That's a picture of Irish Craft Malts. Irish Craft Malts is a very small malting company in Ireland that was started in 2015. And they have specialized over the past few years in small quantities of peated malted barley and peated malted oats. And that matters a lot because most of the whiskies that they have supplied peated malt for, have not yet been released, which means they're still maturing. The first one that came online was one of the whiskies from Blackwater Distillery, the peated whiskey from Blackwater Distillery, in their launch kit of the 3 whiskies that they launched with. 4 whiskies, 3 whiskies, how many was it? I know some of you got the kit. Anyway, the peated whiskey that was in there included peated malt, which was peated malted barley, 100% Irish barley, and 100% Irish peat. 100% peated in Ireland, right? Now we're getting into such technical detail, but that was the first ever that came to market from Irish craft malts. We're going to see more. They don't have the capacity to do massive quantities. So, for example, Waterford Distillery. I've got a peated malt here from Waterford Distillery, right? So this was the first peated malt that came to peated single malt that came to market using 100% Irish peat, yet it had to be malted in Scotland. The reason why is because there was no malting facilities in Ireland that could handle 75 tons of barley and to malt it over a dry, or to dry it over a smoky fuel source. So it had to be sent to Scotland. But for smaller quantities, so while Waterford needs 75 tons for a distillation, there's plenty of other companies that don't need a 75-ton distillate size. They can have smaller distillates run. So Great Northern Distillery, for example, fired up smaller stills to be able to make smaller runs for brands. And we're going to see more of those. So that's a good thing. Expect to see those in 2023. There's about 50 different peated Irish whiskies on the market or that have been released in the past 2 years. 50. I know that comes as a surprise to a lot of people that there are Irish smoky or peated Irish whiskies in that quantity. But I've counted more than 50. If you go to irishmalts.com and do a search for peated, I think there's about 30 something of them live in various stages there, or there's various whiskies that peated whiskies, blends, malts, small amount of peat, large amount of peat, which is incredible. Christy is looking forward to more peat, as am I. As am I. Andrew says 2023 New Year's resolution, try to learn to love the peat. Well, stay tuned, Andrew, because this tonight is for you. We got more information coming on peat. David said, I want to find that. I've had all the Scottish peats and Irish whiskey using Scotch peat, but have yet to find something using turf. Well, there's lots more of that coming. That is on the way. Mickle, yes. Jason says, I was impressed with what Mickle is doing. Mickle, I believe, use Irish craft malts for peat drying their malt as well. So that's another prediction. Next is that we're going to see more transparency from the Irish whiskey market. And the reason we're going to see it is because you're going to demand it. Customers are expecting it. They're asking questions. They want to understand more about how their whiskey is made. Now, I put up there a picture of the Cologne bottle here, Baron Toul, which was the first release from the Cologne distillery this year. And there's lots of information on this. I mean, well, probably no more information you'll find on a lot of whiskeys. However, there are restrictions on what labeling allows in terms of the European law dictates what can and can't be on a label, right? So mixed mash bills, you can't include there the different ages of the different components. If you were making a blend of different distillates, you couldn't include whether one was 3 years and 7 months, another was 3 years and 9 months. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. There's lots of restrictions to standardize the labeling across Europe, across the spirit categories. But I think there's going to be more transparency because a few brands are leading with transparency. So beyond what's on the label, they're talking about it. Distillers, blenders, bonders, they're getting their iPhone and they're standing in front of their casks and they're talking about what they're making. And they're sharing with us the challenges. They're sharing with us what's going into their whiskeys. They're sharing with us what they'd like to do. They're sharing with us the progress reports. They're then sharing with us, without putting it on the label, exactly the breakdown of what's gone into their whiskeys. Whiskey marketers, whiskey bonders are, where they are legally permitted, being a lot more transparent about where they're sourcing their whiskey from. Take W.D. O'Connell, for example. W.D. O'Connell, very open and transparent where they've sourced where the original whiskey came from. They are a whiskey merchant. They don't distill, but where it comes from, they'll talk about. If they can't use the name, like they can't say Bushmills, they'll say a distillery on the North Antrim coast. There's only really one of them. Or they might say a distillery in Dundalk, which we all know will be most likely Great Northern, most likely won't be Cooley Distillery. In any case, I think we're going to see more transparency. And the more you all ask for it, and the more you ask questions, I think the more that brands are going to realize, we've got to tell people. We've got to tell people. There are certain restrictions beyond labeling that prevent them from telling you. So certain distilleries who supply whiskey bonders or whiskey merchants don't permit them to share the source of their whiskey. And that's a kind of a protection thing. Should something go horribly wrong with that party that they've supplied to, or they turn out to be a terrible business or company or person, they don't want anything to do with them, So there are some restrictions in place to protect in certain cases. But I think we're going to see more transparency, and I hope we do, and I hope you keep asking for it. Tony asks if there's any distillery like MGP that's used in the States that make distillate to supply multiple distilleries. Yeah, there's a few of them. Great Northern Distillery would be the most well-known in Dundalk. That was founded by John Teeling. It's the old Harp Brewery in Dundalk. They are the most well-known of the third-party suppliers. Cooley Distillery was doing that beforehand. John Teeling founded that as well. Cooley Distillery today is owned by Beam Suntory. They tend not to be a third-party supplier for the most part. They have some supply agreements in place, but most of their whiskey goes out to Japan, goes to other places, and goes to Connemara whiskey and Tyrconnell's, etc. The other distillery that supplies third-party distillate is West Cork. West Cork does it. West Cork Distillers does it in bulk, but also Middleton Distillery supplies. They have supply agreements in place as well. Some they talk about, some they don't. I mean, Paddy Irish whiskey is made in Middleton, but it's not owned by Middleton Distillery anymore. It's owned by Sazerac, but they supply to them. Writer's Tears, I think it's an open secret, an unkept secret in the world of whiskey, that Writer's Tears is made from Middleton and Bushmills whiskey. So to answer your question, Great Northern Distillery would be the most well-known and probably the most active today. Okay, let me have a sip of whiskey. I'll die of thirst. If you just joined, you're very welcome. We're talking about some whiskey predictions for 2023. Would you ever hit the like button underneath the video on YouTube? And if you can share it anywhere, if you're part of whiskey groups, Facebook groups, Twitter, anywhere, take this link or press the share button. And would you ever share this video? Because we want to hound people with stories of Irish whiskey and to grow our community. You want more and more people to discover the world of Irish whiskey. And we're going to force it down their throat in the most responsible of ways, you understand. But we're not going to hold back in 2023. It's an onslaught of passion and information around Irish whiskey in 2023. All right, what other predictions do we have? The rise of single pot still. We'll be talking about the rise of single pot still for many, many years. So this bottle I have on the screen, and it's here beside me. Single pot still. Jameson released a core range single pot still this year, 3 months ago. It is a 46% ABV. How old is it? 8 years old, 6 to 8 year old single pot still, and it's the first time a core Jameson has been released that is of the style single pot still. That is a mixture of malted and unmalted barley. And why is it important that they did that? It's because it is an absolute vote of confidence in the style of single pot still that the world's most popular Irish whiskey and one of the 10 most sold spirits on whiskeys on planet Earth has decided to lead with the phrase single pot still. Because for so long, single malt is what gets all the attention. And now for the first time, people are going to ask, hold on a second, I like Jameson. I'm familiar with the green bottle. What's this thing here? A few dollars more expensive, maybe twice as expensive. What is this? What is single pot still? We're going to get people asking questions. If the market leader in Irish whiskey is investing in single pot still, the rest of the industry will pay attention because Middleton and Irish Distillers and Pernod Ricard have done their research. And everyone else will benefit from the research. So if I was a small distillery and I was making single pot still whiskey, I would be so happy that Jameson came out with a single pot still version as a permanent piece of their portfolio because it's a vote of confidence and it brings more people to the table. We're going to see more single pot stills released in 2023. There are distilleries that are focused entirely on single pot still. Take Clonakilty in West Cork. Clonakilty just makes single pot still whiskey. They've never released a single pot still whiskey yet. They are waiting patiently. They have it ready. It's of age. It's 3.5 years old. But I think they're waiting until it's 5 years old. But there's other distilleries that are making single pot still whiskey. And we're going to see them being released in 2023. And you take, for example, just what days say? So 10 days ago, Boan Distillery in Drogheda in County Meath, they just released their first single pot still, 3 years old, December 21st. So single pot still is going to be on the rise, which is a good thing, but there's a lot of education needed to be done, and it'll take years and years and years and years for people to understand what it is. But we chip away at it. When this becomes global, so when this product is released in the US market, everything changes. There's no immediate plans for that to happen. Right now, it's Ireland, UK, I think travel, retail, airports, but it's not off the table. Talking to Kevin O'Gorman, Master Distiller, and Brendan Buckley, the head of marketing, they said, never say never. Let's see how it gets received first in the marketplace. So it's only been out a few months. I think it's being very well received. It's going to be my next pour tonight. We're going to see the rise of single pot still. Single pot still rules, says Bob. Single pot stories and sips, single pot still. Well, we just released a single pot still, didn't we? With JJ Corrie. The first ever single pot still released by JJ Corrie was a Stories and Sips single pot still. So far we've had a grain, a malt, and a pot still. We've covered all three styles. We haven't had a blended whiskey yet. Martin says, I was told that the Clonakilty is going to release their own 6-year-old. They don't have a 6-year-old yet, Martin. They only have a 3.5-year-old or almost 4-year-old. The word from Clonakilty directly is that they're waiting till it's 5, which I think is another year away. But if they've got maybe other whiskey down there that's not their own, maybe that's a 6-year-old, they might release it. But I think their own whiskey is about 3.5, 4 years old at this stage. But their pot still is really good. I've tasted it. Even at a young age, it's really, really promising. All right, what other predictions do we have? Ownership changes. And you can all come back to this video now on December 31st, 2023, and see how wrong I was about everything. And you can say, Barry the Egypt doesn't know anything. You got that wrong, you got that wrong, you got that wrong. And you'll have great crack proving me wrong when none of these things come through. These are my predictions anyway. There's going to be ownership changes in the world of Irish whiskey. It's a fluid industry. And lots of things are moving at a fast pace. There's a picture there of Hazelwood House in County Sligo and Lochgill Distillery behind it. That changed hands in 2022. Sazerac purchased it. It's the home of Aharu whiskey, but Sazerac now own that as their brand home for their Irish whiskey portfolio, which includes Paddy Irish whiskey, and now it includes the Aharu single malt line. They will be revealing in 2023 big things and for their brand home. They're going to come and talk to us about that when they have the details to share with us. But there are now 43 distilleries in Ireland, and some of them are going to change hands in 2023. The growth of Irish whiskey has attracted many suitors, as it should. For example, Hazelwood House, like I just shared here, Sazerac purchasing that is a big deal. Bacardi just acquired, I think, the majority stake or a larger stake in Teeling. So they're now the majority owner of Teeling. Obviously, Pernod Ricard owns Middleton Distillery. But we're going to see big companies take hold in the Irish whiskey industry. And there's two in particular that are curious to me, that are interesting, that I am paying attention to, because I think it feels like they should do something. One is the world's biggest spirits company is LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. They are the world's biggest spirits company. They own the likes of Chateau de Chem, Dom Perignon, Ardbeg. They own so many wineries in California. They own Hennessy, cognac, Moet Chandon. They have no Irish whiskey in their portfolio, and I don't think it's for lack of trying. So I'm sure they're exploring. Campari is another group, certainly not anywhere near the size. Campari is like a $1 billion a year kind of turnover. Pernod Ricard be 10 billion. Moet, LVMH 61 billion, massive company. But Campari is another brand that you would they have a lot of whiskey brands and spirits brands and liqueur brands, and you would think that perhaps they might find an attractive acquisition in Ireland. So that's an option. But there's also a lot of these kind of smaller mom and pop distilleries and businesses that'll get consolidated, that a brand will say, do you know what, you're doing a good thing, come on in under our wing. Or there'll be a marketing company or a bonder that might get acquired and become part of another existing Irish whiskey company. Expect to see ownership changes and expect to see people on the move. Distillers are in short supply in Ireland. Experienced distillers are getting to command a good price, and they'll be on the move as well. So lots of change, I think, in 2023 in the world of Irish whiskey. David said that the Campari brand is looking for Irish. And they have staff, they have team members who are very experienced, former Middleton Distillery ambassadors, for example, who are part of Campari, that know Irish. They know Irish inside out. So you'd expect the likes of Campari and LVMH would come sniffing around. Poor Brian Redden has no whiskey with himself in Florida. Just checking in. Had the Dunville's 10 last night, all night. That counts. It's probably still in your system. There's probably enough in your system still today, if you had it all night, that it counts that you're having Dunville's 10 tonight as well. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. All right. So ownership changes we should expect. What else should we expect? All right. That's it. Those are my predictions. So, and I'll talk about what I'd like to see. So let's go back through those. Whiskey tourism, I think, is going to get a boost. I think we're going to see more investment in it. We're going to see more things happening around it. The whiskey bus is going to lead that charge. Woo! And we've got a few other ideas of some whiskey tourism projects that I'd like to get involved in too. Different yeast strains. I think we're going to see more on that, more talked about it. We're going to ask more questions about it. So we'll share some information with you guys on that as well. More non-standard Irish whiskies, which we are going to see being released this year. More peated whiskies. Woo! More transparency, which would be great. And the rise of single pot still whiskey. thanks to Jameson. They're leading the charge. Ownership changes in the world of Irish whiskey. Those are some predictions. If you have predictions of what you think is going to happen, let us know in the comments as well. But there's other things in addition that I would like to see happen in 2023. And then I'll get on to our next Whiskey Club release. I'm going to share the details of our next whiskey. I'm going to share details of not one, but 2 upcoming events in New York. 2 upcoming events. So stay tuned. But first, what would I like to see in 2023 in the world of Irish whiskey? The first thing is I'd like to see more personality. What do I mean by that? We love the people of Irish whiskey. We've got to meet them through the Whiskey Club. They've come on our Meet the Maker events. We love when they connect with us. I know many of you are friends with online and you chat with them. You've gotten to know the people behind Irish whiskey. And I believe the people are a key ingredient in the world of Irish whiskey. And I want them to stop hiding behind labels and PR companies and marketing agencies and phrases like, we make the finest whiskies from the most bountiful of fields full of barley and the finest oak. No. Talk to us like humans as if we were standing beside you in the pub, and we'll have more interest. I want to see more personality. I've got 2 pictures up there of people who it's been great to get to know personally and connect. Louise McGuan from JJ Corrie, Kevin O'Gorman, Master Distiller at the Middleton Distillery. They've enjoyed getting to know us. We've enjoyed getting to know them. And I'd like to see more folks stepping out from behind the marketing spiel and the labels and opening up to us a little bit. I've tried to get certain brands and people to talk to us, and it's like pulling teeth because they say, well, we'll send out a press release, or can we put you through a PR agency and there's somebody in the PR agency who can give you the information you want. I'm not interested. I want to get to know the people. I'm only doing this. I'm only involved in the world of whiskey myself for the crack. I want to meet people, drink a whiskey with them, tell stories, hear stories, have a session, meet them on the whiskey bus. I want to see more personality. So hopefully whiskey brands who are listening would take that on board. And it doesn't mean that we need a lot of time from them, but rather personality can come from taking your iPhone out when you're in the warehouse, or when you're about to fill a barrel, or when you're bringing new whiskey to market and shooting a quick video and putting it on your social media channels. And we start to get to know the person, the whole human behind the whiskey company. We know the challenges, we know the ups, the downs, how hard it is to build a company. And the whiskey business, boy, that's not easy to build at all. But we want to get to know you. And that way we can support you. And people do business with people, and people buy from people. And I know you have bought whiskeys from companies because you got to know the people. How many times do I see in our Facebook group you tagging the owners, the brand reps, the distillers of companies when you've got one of their whiskeys? And you're so proud to say, folks at Dunville's, Jarlath, and all of the team at Dunville's, hey, here's a whiskey I bought from you guys because I met you on the whiskey bus last year. I remember I said I was going to buy the whiskey. Well, here I am with the whiskey, and you're so delighted and happy to share it. And they love seeing it. All right. So more personality is what we want to see. No, David says more personality. So Conor McGregor, I wouldn't call that a personality, more kind of like a psychopath, right? We don't want any of that. You can keep him. We don't want him. The Irish don't want him anyway. David says he hates the Limavady ads. So like you see these ads, right, where it's all about the finest of this and the most. Apparently there's only fine oak and only fine barley. Nobody's getting the second best barley or the second best oak, apparently. In any case, look, I get that it's a bulk mass market thing you got to do for in some cases to grow your whiskey brand, but I don't know. I think a bit of personality and dropping kind of the walls would go a long way. Mark says all the smaller distilleries you've had on the Meet the Maker events have all been terrific. 100%. And we've gone with them for a reason, because they are personalities in the sense of they have a bit of a character to them. They're interesting. They're different. They have maybe an outspoken viewpoint. Maybe they're doing something interesting. Maybe they've got a vision. And those are interesting people. And I know that, like, for example, if I think of the likes of a Hascraw distillery in Galway, we had the founding husband and wife team of a Hascraw distillery on our Meet the Maker event. And 2 weeks later, a couple of you folks were at the distillery in Galway. You went to visit because of the Meet the Maker event. You got to know them. I mean, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So I think we're going to see, I'd like to see more of that. All right. So more personality. What else do I want to see? More info on US releases. So I ask a lot of questions of brands when they have I get a lot of press releases from whiskey companies who want me to share the details of their whiskey. And my first thing I'll always look for on the press release is any information related to American availability. And it's often not there. So Irish whiskey companies who hire Irish PR companies and Irish marketing agencies often think that they just exist in Ireland. And nobody outside the world will ever think or consider that they might want information outside of Dublin or outside of Ireland, outside of Cork, outside of Belfast. So I have to ask them about US availability. And I can count on one hand how many times a PR company has gotten back to me with the answers to the information I asked for, which could be as simple as, is there any plans for this whiskey to be released in the United States? They don't have that information themselves. For some reason, they can't get it. Anyway, we want more information. So I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see the US is the biggest market by country for Irish whiskey in the world. So even if it's not coming to the US, just tell us it's not coming to the US. Great. We'll buy it in Ireland if we want it. But if it is coming to the US, what states? What states is going to be available? And I know it can be difficult and things are not always finalized when it's released in Ireland, but it has to be finalized eventually. Why? Because it ends up on a shelf. And sometimes I'll see something on a shelf in the United States before the whiskey brand has gotten back to me to be able to tell me what state it's available. I get that there's breakdowns in communication. It can be a challenge, and the 3-tier system makes it difficult. But please, if you're a whiskey company, would you send us more information about where is it available? Do you know why? We have a really sinister reason for wanting this information so that we can buy the whiskey. It's that sinister. And I know it's the first question you ask me when I share a press release or details of a new whiskey. You say, where is it available in the US? Give us the information. Give us the information. Christy says she needs a calendar of events for releases. Well, we'll never get that, but at least let us have insight into where it's going to end up. I have this grand vision, and it's a dream really, because it'll probably only happen when I'm asleep in my dreams, of a website where at any time I can search for a whiskey in the United States, an Irish whiskey, and it'll tell me not just which stores have it or where it was sent to, because distributors gave me that information, but which bars or restaurants stock it on their shelves. Oh, can you imagine? And that way I could go to the bar down the road and sample a bit of Jameson pot still before investing in a bottle. That's a big dream. A big dream. It's probably only going to be a dream. Tony says, I'd love to assemble a calendar. Well, there's no calendar really, Tony, for all these releases that come out. I don't get information on them until the day they're released sometimes, or sometimes I don't get the information at all. I'll see it on some other website. So there's no one channel of supplying information. We're kind of all scrambling to get bits and pieces. And sometimes I'll hear about a new whiskey from a chat with a bartender who'll say, did you hear about this whiskey coming out? And I'll say, no, I was talking to the guys this week. They didn't even tell me about it. So it's a bit of a challenge. And then even with our own event, our own whiskeys. So I'm planning on having at least eight whiskeys I want to release in 2023. I can't even put together a calendar of that because there's too many variables. But what I can do is keep you informed every week about where things are in the kind of pipeline. Like every 6 weeks or so, I'd like to have a new whiskey, but that'll move because one whiskey suddenly will take 12 weeks to get to market. It was only supposed to take 4, and then it pushes everything else back, so, but we'll just keep talking anyway. We'll keep talking. All right. That's one of my requests. The next thing, more miniatures. I'd like to see, if you're a whiskey company tuned in at the moment, we'd like to see your whiskey in a smaller version of your big bottle so that I don't have to spend €100 to taste your whiskey. Can I spend €10 or €6 or $10 or $6 to taste your whiskey instead? And I know how hard it is to fire up a second bottling line, a miniature bottling line, of which there are very few of them in Ireland, but you can hand bottle them too. So look, it's possible. I'd like to see more miniatures. I'd like to see them going to stores. I'd like to see them going to us and our whiskey club so we can get you sampling and tasting them. And I'd like to see them available for purchase. So if I order a big bottle of something online, can I bundle in a small bottle of something else and I'm still paying the same shipping? There's a big opportunity. So let's see some more miniatures, folks. More miniatures. We want more. Dave says 8. Yes, 8 whiskies. 8 whiskies. That's the plan anyway. We've got 3 or 4 of them already almost ready to go. All right, so that's 1 miniature is what we want. And then the last, I also want prices slashed by 90%. It's not going to happen. That's just a pipe dream. So, yeah, look, whiskey's getting more and more expensive. Costs are going up. Energy costs are going up. Transportation costs, logistics. I'd like to see the costs slashed, but it's not going to happen. All right, is there anything else you all would like to see happen in 2023? Let me know in the comments. Let us know. There's lots of companies, so miniatures are not all created equally. So if I run a bar, if I've got a liquor license in a bar in Ireland, I can bottle up a whiskey and I can sell it as if I'm selling you over the counter a pour of whiskey, a measure of whiskey. I can fill a little bottle and I can sell it to you and you can take it home with you. That's legal. That's possible to do. It gets trickier when you start externally and when they start going on shelves, and then you've got to get the right labels and you got to get them sent overseas and they've got to be approved. So there's lots of places doing kind of, I would call local sales of miniatures, but on a grand scale, I'd love to see whiskey companies releasing more sample kits, sample boxes and sample kits. Oftentimes they go to press and influencers and people who, I don't know, that's grand, but if you're going to bottle up small versions, maybe do more that more people could try it, or whiskey clubs could try them, especially whiskey clubs of all things. Whiskey clubs. I mean, the people who spend the most on whiskey are inside the whiskey clubs. All right. Jason likes the 90% price decrease. All right. We'll go for that. So we'll lock that in. Come back at the end of the year and see if we got it right. Okay. So with that in mind, let us move on and talk about our next whiskey. Where do we start? We'll start by telling a little story, a parable, if you will. Back in August of 2022, which seems like a long time ago, we had this mad adventure around Ireland that some of you were part of, called the Whiskey Bus. And this Whiskey Bus was a wonderful beast. And she took us safely from Dublin all the way up to Northern Ireland, to Belfast and Bushmills and all around Northern Ireland and back to Belfast and eventually back down to Dublin, down to the airport. And we had a great time. And we visited 9 distilleries in 7 days, 16 pubs. We sampled 63 different whiskies officially. That doesn't count what was sampled in pint glasses after all those samples of whiskies were had. We got to meet amazing makers and blenders, distillers, the folks behind whiskies. We were stopped on the road by a whiskey company who came on board, Limavady Irish Whiskey, and we had a chance to try some of their whiskey on the bus, and we had some great times. It was amazing 7 days. And when we were planning the Whiskey Bus, which incidentally came about based on a live stream like this, where Anthony Sheehy from Irish Whiskey Auctions and Katie Sheehy and myself, 3 of us were on a live stream, and we had this mad idea to do a 2-week tour around Ireland. And we all met up a week later, and we said that was a ridiculous idea. It wasn't 2 weeks on a whiskey bus. I mean, we'd be dead, right? And they were like, yeah, we'd be dead. What about a week, though? Yeah, we'll do a week. And so we committed this week. And as we started kind of sharing the details of it, we were putting together the itinerary and putting together the stops for the whiskey bus. Where could we go? And folks were reaching out. Hey, you got to come here. You got to go there. Okay, we'll try and squeeze this in. Yeah, yes, we'll definitely do that. That's amazing. We got to build this amazing itinerary. And as we were building it, I remember I got a message. A message came in and it said, you have to come to our distillery. Now, by this stage, we had our itinerary already in place. And I said, I don't think we can. I don't think it's actually physically possible to squeeze in your distillery. And the message said, you don't understand. You have to. I said, okay, but I can't. And the message said, we'll promise to make it worth your while. I said, well, look, tell us what you have in mind for our guests. And the message said, we can't give you all the details. Just rest assured, this is what we do. We wow people. We're going to wow you. You're never going to forget this. Trust us. Can you squeeze us in? That message came from Fiona Boyd Armstrong, the co-founder of Redemon Estate Distillery that makes Shorecross gin and Shorecross whiskey in Crossgar in County Down, about a 45-minute drive from Belfast. And I've been up to Redemon Estate. I had met with David, her husband, and Fiona, and they give me a great. And I was really impressed with what they were doing and loved their approach, but I just couldn't fit them in. But she said, you have to. So we did. We squeezed them in. And we squeezed them in to be the last stop. Now, nobody wants to be the last stop on a whiskey bus tour. But they took it. They said, we're gonna wow your guests. And we had an amazing time at the Redemon Estate Distillery. It was the last stop. Not every one of our group actually made it to the bus that day because they were worn out. And those that didn't regretted it. Because what happened when we got there was amazing. We got to fill our own cask of whiskey that we all got to sign. We got an amazing tour of every step of the production process, but in a different way, where we got to taste every step of the production process. The beer, the wash, the new make spirit, the aged spirit. It was amazing. And David did an amazing job of the tour. And then he sat us down for an official tasting. Now, bear in mind, we'd had, up until this point, I think 58 whiskies. We now had 5 more. And the 5th whiskey, in other words, the 63rd whiskey of our trip, blew our minds. I remember sniffing this whiskey and going, hold on a second, this is different. And looking around and everyone going, oh. And you could hear kind of a murmur. And then we sipped it and we thought, oh my God, this is an amazing whiskey. And then he told us what it was. And we said, we have to have it. And he laughed. And I said, no, David, we have to have that whiskey. How do we get that whiskey? This is the whiskey that is our next whiskey that we're going to release from the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. So let me play a little video here of our trip up to the distillery while we're talking about it. So there's a little overview here. David showing us around. Reckon there's our whiskey bus there. Woo! It's an amazing estate and an amazing distillery. Amazing setup. There's David showing us. We didn't know it yet, but that was about to be one of our own casks. We tasted every step of the process, every single step. They've got an amazing setup of different stills that no other distillery in Ireland has. Here's the tasting room. And then you start to see people starting to nose it and go, hold on a second, there's something here. What is this? In any case, this 5th whiskey was it was just the best. And so it is our next release. So let's talk about it. Here's our group outside the distillery. Redemon Estate Distillery in Crossgar near Downpatrick in County Down. And there's the photograph I took of the whiskey itself on the day. And I was in no state after 62 other whiskeys to be evaluating this. But I named this whiskey that day the best whiskey of the 63 that we'd had, and others agreed with me. And when you hear about the style of whiskey, you'll recognize that would not be the normal thing I would have gone for. Yet it was the best whiskey I tasted of 63 whiskeys. And we tasted, 26-year-old single pot still from Middleton while standing in the Bow Street distillery where John Jameson would have stood. And we had it poured for us by Ger Garland. And we had amazing whiskeys. Bushmills, we drank from the cask. Dunvilles, we drank from the cask in Ecklandville Estate or Ecklandville Distillery. So here's what we're going to do. Our next whiskey is a Shorecross whiskey. And it is a first in many, many ways. And I'm blown away that we have the privilege and the opportunity to get this whiskey for our club. I am infinitely grateful and thankful to Fiona and David for trusting us with this whiskey because it's a big one. This is a big one. And I've had folks sample this, try samples of this here in Ireland, and they've been blown away. But our first whiskey is coming from Redemon Estate. Our next whiskey is coming from Redemon Estate Distillery. It is a peated single malt. A peated single malt. Now, bear with me on this story, even if you're not a peated whiskey fan, because I think you're going to be interested. It's double distilled. It's aged for 6 years and 10 months in a European oak cask that previously contained cognac and orange liqueur. So think of Grand Marnier, orange, citrus, sweet whiskey, a sweet liqueur. This is a whiskey that blew our minds. As soon as we nosed it, we got this citrus, chocolate, dairy, kind of a milky, chocolatey note and a citrus note on the nose with the lightest hint of peat. when we tasted it, we got these wonderful layers of almost like pipe tobacco meeting chocolate orange. If you've ever had orange infused chocolate, milk chocolate, maybe even bordering on the dark chocolate with a black pepper coating, that's what this was. So it's a peated single malt, double distilled, aged for 6 years and 10 months in European oak cask that previously contained cognac and orange liqueur. If you're not already a peat fan, don't worry, because we're going to do something different with this. We're going to take you on a journey over the next month. In January, we're going to learn about peat. But let's talk about this whiskey a little bit more. It's bottled at a distiller's strength of 65% ABV, not cask strength. And the reason it's not cask strength is because, I have it here. Here's the cask strength, 72% ABV. 72%. Here it is. I've been tasting this again tonight to remind myself of its goodness. But David is bringing it down to what he believes is the best ABV, which is 65% ABV. 65% ABV, right? So distiller's strength, which is what we want them to do, right? We want the distiller or the blender to tell us what it should be bottled at, not just cask strength. Anyway, I've been sipping it at both cask strength and bringing it down with some water to probably close to 65, and I'm blown away by it. What else? So this is, I mentioned this is a whiskey of firsts. Every single whiskey we've released in the club, each of the 4 whiskeys has been a first in some way. We got the first ever 12-year-old single grain from 2 Stacks to come to the United States. We got the first ever whiskeys matured on the cliffs of Moher. The first ever single casks released by J.J. Corrie. The first ever single pot still released by J.J. Corrie. Now we're going to have some of the biggest firsts that we've ever had, and we're so lucky. It's our first distillery bottling. The last 2 whiskey collaborations have been with whiskey bonders. J.J. Corrie and 2 Stacks don't own distilleries. This is our first time with a distillery bottling, which is very exciting. This whiskey is distilled entirely and matured entirely in Shorecross in Redemon Estate in Northern Ireland. It's the first peated whiskey bearing the Shorecross whiskey name that has ever been released. It's only, it's the first peated whiskey they have released. It is the first single cask destined for the United States from Shorecross. There's no other, it's an entire cask we have, so 300 odd bottles, single cask that's destined for the United States. We'll be shipping it from Ireland. And wait for this, folks. This is unbelievable. It is the first peated single malt distilled and released in Northern Ireland in 75 years. This is mind-blowing. I talked to Fionnán O'Connor about this, whiskey historian. He said, Barry, honestly, you could probably claim it's a century. He said you could probably claim it's 100 years. But he said 75 years guaranteed. Pre-World War II is the last time that there was a peated single malt distilled and released from Northern Ireland. Can you believe that? The first peated single malt released from Northern Ireland in 75 years, and we get it. The entire cask, which is unbelievable. I'm blown away. Like, it's a piece of history. This is a piece of the renaissance of Irish whiskey, and we get the cask. Thanks to David and Fiona and their kindness in partnering with us and wanting to be part of our journey. And they have been since we first started talking to them. So we talk about wanting the personality of the whiskey community and wanting more personality. David and Fiona have made me feel so welcome. They've made our Whiskey Bus people feel so welcome when we went up to Redemon Estate. David texts me regularly. I really enjoy chatting with them. I love their approach, and they are so passionate about craft distilling, craft brewing, the craft whiskey industry in the United States. They're obsessed with what they're doing themselves. They have a great gin business, a great whiskey business. This is a big, big thing for us. The first peated single malt distilled and released in Northern Ireland in 75 years. It is also, wait for it, folks, it is a gold medal winner. So David took this cask and he entered it into the Irish Whiskey Awards, and it won gold for best peated single malt under 11 years and under at the Irish Whiskey Awards in November. Can you believe it? He won gold. He came over to me afterwards at the awards. I said, congratulations on the award. And he leaned in and he said, you know what cask it was, don't you? I said, I hope it was our one. He said it was. So isn't that amazing? It's already a gold medal winner. It's never been available to the public. We're the only ones that are ever going to get this. They have other peated single malts that will be released in the future, but not like this is the first. It's it. Like this is the first one. And so we get a little time capsule, piece of history. And I'm just really excited about it. Kristen, we'll get all the details on the production of this from David and Fiona directly. So what we're going to do for the month of January, so with each of our releases going forward, we're going to build stories and videos and content, articles, updates, social media posts around that whiskey. So January is going to be a journey through peat, which culminates in the release of this whiskey at the end of January. So we're hoping to land this whiskey in Cork to be able to ship it to you in the last week of January, which is only 3.5 weeks away. And we're really excited about that. All going to plan. Labeling is, again, we're waiting on our labeling to be finalized. As long as that goes to plan, it'll get down to Cork. David has, I think he's disgorged the cask already, and it's waiting to be put into bottles. But we're going to have a whole month. I'm going to share everything that we can about peat to help you understand a couple of things that I think are very important to enjoying this whiskey. The first is how important peat and turf is to the history of Ireland. Culturally, socially, economically, peat has been part of Ireland for hundreds and thousands of years. Domestically, it has helped us. Commercially, it has helped us. I'm going to take us on a journey through articles, social media posts, sharing videos, links to podcast episodes. For example, I've done some for like Waterford Distillery where we did 3 episodes on peat. We shared those. We're going to talk about peat, and we're going to learn to understand it so that when it comes time to tasting it, we have an understanding and appreciation of how it got to where it got to, and then we get to make our decision about whether we like it or not. I don't expect you all to like it. I don't expect everyone to go for this, but it's an important part of our journey that if we're to pursue flavor, we can't ignore something because historically X percentage of people say, I don't like peat. And as a whiskey club, I think we've got to push the boundaries a little bit, and we've got to try things that nobody else is doing. No one else is, I mean, who else is getting the first peated single malt from Northern Ireland? Nobody. So January is going to be, it's going to be a great month. It's going to be a great month. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I am, for those of you who don't know, a new convert to peat in the last 6 months myself, and I've enjoyed the journey. I've converted to it because I'm increasingly searching for new flavors, and peat is showing me what can happen when the right production methods involve peat. So it's not that I'm just drinking a glass of smoke, but the layers. Like, for example, this Shortcross whiskey that we're going to release has layers and nuance. There's a sweetness to this that is going to blow your mind. Like, you will think, if you close your eyes and smell this, you would think that it was a bar of chocolate that was infused with orange that had been passed through a room where somebody had smoked a pipe at one point. And there's just wonderful layers to it. So it doesn't mean everything has to be an ashtray or a bonfire. And I think you're really going to enjoy this. So I want to explore this through the month of January. Fiona and David are going to join us to kick this off, to tell us more about their journey and this whiskey on January 10th. So our first Meet the Maker of 2023 is going to be with David and Fiona. Fiona is awfully shy, but she has agreed to come on and join us, which I'm excited for because, let's be honest, and David will agree with me, Fiona's the real brains behind the operation. So we want to talk to Fiona. And David, we'll have you as well, of course. So between the two of them, they run a fantastic operation up there, and I don't think the estate gets enough attention. And other distilleries that don't do as much get more attention, and I think it's wrong. And not... we're going to fix that. We're going to give Redemin Estate more attention. It's the first time I have ever tasted a whiskey where I have gone to the owners, gone to the whiskey maker and said, please, 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 can I have this in a cask, in a bottle? It's the first time I've ever done it. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited that David said yes to this, and Fiona. So thank you for doing that with us. All right. Are we excited? David said, I got Barry to try an Octomore in Dublin. You did, David, and I am now the proud owner of an Octomore, thanks to that night in Temple Bar. I will not forget that night. It was a great night. And there was a pivotal moment in the peat pivot. And David, you were there for it. And Anthony Sheehy was outside the window, knocking on the window, asking, what's going on with Barry drinking peated whiskey? He's like, and Scotch? What's the story here? All right. So look, I'm really excited about this, folks. This is a big one. So I hope you're excited too. We will have plenty of this whiskey available. It may sit on our shelf for a while. That's okay. but there'll be no limit to how many you can purchase. I don't think. I think there'll be enough for everyone to get as many as you want. And I'm going to be stocking my shelf with them because it's a fantastic whiskey and I want it as a drinker. And I recommend you try this. Like, I really recommend you try it. If you've not done it, if you've not been involved in peat or have found a peated whiskey you like, or why not commit to the journey through January, learning about it, understanding it, joining our event on January 10th, and then the tasting event itself, once we've got the whiskey in our hands at the end of January, early February, when we get this to you. Come along for the journey. So it sounds like you're excited. This is good. This is good. Bob says, any chance the bottle will include a small sample bottle? No, Bob, it won't, sadly. And the reason for that is because if we're to get this out on the time frame we want, we don't have a separate bottling line for it. So I don't think we can do that. I don't think we will. Price-wise, Mark, we're finalizing that at the moment. The exchange rates are going back the way we don't want them to go for you all in America at the moment. So I think we'll get it in and around probably $93, $94, I would expect. We will subsidize the shipping again, so make the shipping as cheap as possible. It'll get to you in about 3 days from Ireland. So that's the route. We're going to replicate the route of the Cliffs of Moher whiskey that we got to you, which was a fantastic success from a logistics standpoint, thanks to our partners at Lighthouse Drinks. And we're going to do the same thing. So we think, and look, a historic first cask, almost cask strength whiskey for under $100 of a single cask, I think is a deal, personally. I've got people pushing me to charge more for it. I don't want to. I want to keep it as low as we possibly can. So I suspect it'll be $92, $93, maybe $95, maybe. So hopefully for $120 landed to you, including shipping. That's the goal, right? I know shipping is expensive, but if I was shipping it to you from California, you'd pay the same in shipping. So we're subsidizing the shipping. We're paying 27 euros for every bottle that gets shipped from Ireland. We're paying, and you're paying 25. So that's what we're going to try and do. That's the only way we can get whiskey to you guys quickly right now is out of Ireland. Putting it on ships at sea. We can't get 8 releases out this year, and I'd like to get 8 releases out. I'd like to. All right, next. Okay, upcoming event. All right, folks, we talked about our Dead Rabbit event. For those of you who were paying attention recently on our last Meet the Maker event with Jack McGarry, founder of the Dead Rabbit, and Mark McLaughlin, director of Irish Whiskey, we have not just one event coming up in New York in February, but we've decided to do 2 events. The first event is we have put together a program to celebrate a decade of the Dead Rabbit. The Dead Rabbit is the world's most famous Irish bar. It is now 10 years old. It has won more awards than any other Irish bar on earth. World's best bar, best cocktail bar, best Irish bar, you name it, has won all the awards. They are putting together a 10-day long celebration to celebrate their 10 years in February. That includes world-class musicians, world-class cocktail pop-ups, events that showcase the best of Ireland. And we were very surprised and excited to be asked to put together an Irish whiskey event, their only Irish whiskey event of the 10 years, of the 10 days, to celebrate Irish whiskey. So they've asked us to create an event for the 10th anniversary. So we have done that, and we've crafted an event called Tradition Meet Tomorrow. And it is a celebration through the history of Irish whiskey, past, present, and future. It's going to be a big one, but sadly, there's only a few seats available because it's in a small bar in New York, but we're going to solve that problem in a second for you. So this event is called Tradition Meet Tomorrow. It's a one-of-a-kind immersive experience. We're exploring the past, the present, and the future of Irish whiskey through 6 extraordinary pours. I say 6 extraordinary pours. Some of these whiskies are no longer produced, and some of the whiskies are as old as 33 years of age. It is a tasting of everything that is good in Irish whiskey. It is co-hosted by me, by Mark McLaughlin, the director of Irish Whiskey, and we're flying over from Middleton Distillery, the head distiller of the micro distillery, Eva Doherty. And Eva is going to present, as part of this tasting with the 6 whiskies, she is going to present 2 whiskies, including, drumroll, a tasting of the 33-year-old Method and Madness, of which there are only 252 bottles ever made. 12 bottles are heading to America, one of which will be opened by us. This one. Let me share this with you. 33-year-old Method and Madness. 30 years in bourbon, single pot still. 3 years in Mizunara casks. This will be emptied in New York. 33 years, only 12 bottles destined for the entire United States, and one of them will be served at this event. Look at that, 33 years of age. This is a very, very rare bottle. That is the one of our whiskeys. We are not sharing every single whiskey because we're going to surprise you with a lineup that includes other whiskeys that are 30 years and more. It includes whiskeys that are no longer made. It includes whiskeys that can't be had in public. It includes whiskeys that are not yet released. The event includes a welcome Irish coffee, the Dead Rabbit Irish coffee on arrival. It includes a food pairing and tasting all night long at our event. It happens at 6 o'clock on February 6th. We only have 25 seats available. And it also includes a tasting of their cocktail menu. Jack McGarry will be there, founder of the Dead Rabbit. You will leave that event not just having tasted 6 of the most extraordinary whiskeys you've ever tasted in your life, the cocktail menu, the Irish coffee. You will leave with a swag bag put together by the Dead Rabbit, including a copy of their book, Paddy Drinks, a copy of their book From Barley to Blarney, a copy of their Spirits of Ireland tasting guide, a tote bag, all kinds of goodies inside that bag. It's a very rare chance for tasting these whiskeys and coming together. I wish we had 100 seats. We don't. We've only got 25. And I know that some of you are going to be disappointed because you won't be able to get in. Here's the details, right? There's about 30 seats in this room. 3 or 4 of them need to go to the Dead Rabbit. We've got 25 of them. We've got the bulk of them. This week, we will release the tickets. They're $295 a ticket. $295 to cover. I mean, if you try and get this in the Dead Rabbit, it'll cost you, I think, north of... They're going to have a bottle of this, which will be north of that price, put it that way. One of these whiskeys alone will be more than $295 on the Dead Rabbit menu, but you're going to taste about 9 drinks in total that night. It's $295 a head. It's on February 6th. Only 25 seats available. The fairest way we can do it is to keep you posted about when the tickets are going to go available, and then it'll just be first come, first served. Rest assured, though, if you don't get a ticket and you want to go to it, and you can't go to it because the tickets are sold out, I'm going to do another event the next night, February 7th. So not everyone either will get in because they can because there's not enough tickets, or not everyone can pay $295 for a whiskey ticket, which I understand completely. So what we're going to do is the next night on February 7th, we're going to meet at the Copper Still in Chelsea, which is an Irish bar that's run by one of our group, Shane Buggy, who is the owner of the Copper Still group. Not the same Copper Still where you came to our event last September in New York. This is the Chelsea location. We're going to meet up there at no cost. It's going to cost you nothing. Why? Because you're going to buy your own drinks. Very simple. We are going to have space where we can all meet, hang out, order drinks, order food, do whatever we want, and it's a chance to get together. So we're going to try and cover all bases here. An amazing Dead Rabbit event, an amazing Copper Still event. Something for everybody, and some way to disappoint everybody at the same time. What do you think? Okay, Tom says, wow, damn. David says, I want. Pick me. Mark says, hopefully includes an Uber. Yeah, I mean, look, it's New York. There'll be nobody driving anyway. It'll be subways and Ubers and taxis to get us out of the Dead Rabbit at the end of the night. Take my money, says Bob. No live streams, Christy. No, this is just a kind of an in-person. I'll ask them about a live stream, but the Dead Rabbit is keen that they want to kind of control the event and the experience, which would be tough to do on the live stream. And we don't think we can mic up for it or get the just get that done. I don't think so. So it's a most likely no. Jason says, any DD tickets? What's a DD? Designated driver? I'd love to attend, but would be a waste for my wife since she doesn't drink. I'll check on that, Jason. If You're one of the lucky ones to get a ticket. I'll check on that. Eamon says, spectacular. Bob says, if I get a ticket, I'm there. Kristen says, when do we find out when they go on sale? So we're trying to get the online ordering system with the Dead Rabbit up and running. Here's what's happening. They're right now planning out the entire, they haven't even announced their 10th anniversary events. We're the first to kind of go out there and say, we're doing one of them. They have a big lineup over the 10 days. They're scrambling to get all the bits to pull together to get it right and have it ready to go. Most of that goes online like next week. We're going to try and do something this week where I will send out an email tomorrow with the details of when that'll happen, right? So tomorrow's email won't be the email, but the best I can say is tomorrow you will get an email telling you when those tickets go on sale. And it'll say something like on X date at this time, and I'll make sure it's a time when West Coast, East Coast, everybody's out of bed. It'll be first come, first served. And I'm sorry that we don't have more than 25 tickets. And if you go there and it says sold out, I'm really sorry. But we'll have more opportunities. But if you can't get there, come to the Copper Still the next night, and you can take the $295 that you would have spent on these whiskeys, and you can put it behind the bar at the Copper Still, and you'll be you'll be stretchered home. Dave, the tickets are this week, and we're conscious that the flights, I have been banging the drum on this, flights and hotels. Here's the challenge. We have a lot of moving pieces with who is involved. We're not actually releasing all the whiskeys because there could be different people from different brands or distilleries joining us. We wanted to release the tickets before Christmas, but there's been a delay in a couple of areas, so we couldn't do it beforehand. So we're conscious. We know that this isn't going to suit everybody, and for that, we're sorry. All we can say is that I know there's a couple of people who reached out to me have already booked hotels that are refundable, and a couple of people have booked flights that are refundable. I don't know if that's an option. If it is, might be no harm. But look, it'll be a first come, first served on the tickets, and then the Copper Still, we'll have a great night in the Copper Still as well. So you're guaranteed to get into the Copper Still, because the only thing that would stop you getting into the Copper Still is the fire license. If we surpass the 200 odd that can get into the Copper Still on the Tuesday night, which I don't think we will. Bob's going to take the train. Yeah, so look, some of these things, we'd love to have more notice on them, but some of these things are kind of so many moving pieces. I've discovered this in the past year, like in the whiskey industry, there's so many dependencies, and then there's things when people get sick and people are out of work and can't get back in touch with you, and you can't get answers to questions. And so, yeah, if you've got refundable options on tickets to book, I would do that. In the meantime, it'll be this week. So what day is today? Today is Sunday. I'm going to say by Thursday, those tickets will be on sale, like by Thursday. So tomorrow, the email will go out, Monday, telling you that either on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at X time, here's what you'll be able to do. All right. So that's the fairest thing we can do. That's the fairest we can do. Jason says $158 returned from Indy. That's not bad. And everyone can stay at John Michael's house. Look, there you go. Take a screenshot of that, folks. Free Airbnb. But we'll have a great session on February 7th as well, the Copper Still. That'll go on until it shuts down or we fall down or whatever happens. That'll be a great all night as well. So we'll take over New York for Monday and Tuesday night. I know it's not a weekend, but look, weekends are hard to figure out as well, and flights and weekends and hotel rooms and weekends. All we do when we talk about events is disappoint people, because things are difficult for so many to get to, or it's not possible at work, or if it was a weekend you could do. But look, folks, we're trying our best, and look, all we can do is bring opportunities. And where else did you get these opportunities? Only right here. The Stories and Sips and the event, I should preface by saying that I think you already are, for those of you who are interested, it's for Stories and Sips Whiskey Club members, right? So that's a $20 a month membership. If you're not a member and you want to go to this, the email will be going out to members. The Dead Rabbit is a big fan of the Whiskey Club. They are members themselves of the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, and they want our Whiskey Club to be part of their growth. So when they open in Austin and New Orleans and everywhere else, the Stories and Sips Whiskey Club will be involved in different ways to promote the Dead Rabbit, promote events, and promote Irish whiskey together. So that's the other caveat I would add in there. If the tickets don't sell out to the Whiskey Club, we will open them up to the general public. But I suspect that we will run out of tickets in the first 10 minutes. I suspect. Okay. But again, look, can I just showcase this again? 33 years old, 30 years in bourbon casks, 3 years in Mizunara oak. It's spectacular. One of only 252 bottles in the world. All right. Whew. It's all happening. It's all happening. I need a drink. Crack open the Mizunara, will I? It's too early. All right. What'll I pour now? I think these are three big announcements, really. Two massive ones. Our bottle, our next whiskey bottle from Shortcross, exciting. And then our Dead Rabbit event called Tradition Meet Tomorrow. And then our Copper Still event. Three big announcements tonight. Just to add more to that event in the Dead Rabbit. So Tradition Meet Tomorrow. If you go into the Dead Rabbit today, you'll see the servers walking around. They've got their green t-shirts on, and on the back it says Tradition Meet Tomorrow. And I spotted that when I was in there in September when we were doing our New York events in the Copper Still in the East Village. And I asked Jack, the founder, about it, and he explained that the Irish bar to him, the Dead Rabbit is inspired by the past, but it's the future or the Ireland that he's most proud of. It's not the paddywhackery, the Irish flags, the shamrocks and shillelaghs. It's tradition, but it meets tomorrow. And when he asked me to do the event for this Irish whiskey event, I said, Jack, we got to do Tradition Meet Tomorrow, where you're building on the historical significance of the creation of Ishkabaha Irish whiskey. And we do a liquid history and a journey through Irish whiskey, through the history, through the Irish whiskey, tradition meeting tomorrow, culminating in this last pour of the night, which will be Method and Madness, which is tradition meeting tomorrow. The methodology of old meeting the madness of today. That's what Method and Madness came about. The brand was formed between the established existing masters, the master coopers and blenders and distillers, collaborating with the apprentices who are coming in from University College Cork and coming in on apprentice programs and putting their minds together. So Method meeting Madness is like tradition meeting tomorrow. So we're going to taste whiskeys. We're going to basically tell the story of Irish whiskey over the night between myself, Mark, and Eva, and we're going to taste as we go. And we're going to tell stories. And it's really almost like I would liken this to like a play / production rather than a tasting event. In other words, we're going deep and we're going to have some crack with it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Troy, I will send the link. I'm not going to tell you where the link will be because we haven't got that finalized. This is a moving thing. Here's our challenge. The Dead Rabbit could wait until the night before and still sell out if they just did it on their own channels. We're kind of pushing them hard and saying, "Oh no, we want it a month in advance." They're going to scramble to get this ready for us in the next week and in the next few days, and we'll have this link sent out. The link will be sent via email, and you'll be able to register. Whether we're able to take the payment at that moment or not, it'll all be put in there in the email, and we'll be as clear as possible. I think by now with what we do, we communicate and we communicate and then we over communicate, and everything is as clear as possible, and we'll answer all your questions. So hopefully, that's clear. All right. If you don't get to the Dead Rabbit though, folks, again, and I have to apologize that we only have 25 tickets, which means there's going to be some folks aren't going to get there. Please come to the Copper Still on Tuesday night. Please come to Chelsea. It's a great venue. It's near everything. There's some great Irish pubs around. I mean, between Chelsea and the East Village, and they're not far apart. Like, there's so much, and we're going to have a great night. They have great food at the Copper Still. They'll clear an area for us. We'll have a session. It'll be brilliant. All right. Okay, well, I was going to pour something else. What was I going to pour? Oh, yeah. I'm going to pour the Jameson single pot still, which, if enough of you scream and shout about it, we'll get it to America. Different location, Kristen. Different location. The other one. Chelsea. No, Rob, there won't be a lot of parking there at all. There won't be a lot of parking. I will find out parking options, but if it's possible to avoid driving, which isn't always possible, that's always the first recommended thing, but I'll get some parking details of where is recommended from Shane. So it'll be good to see Shane again and bring some business to the Copper Still. They've got some Irish whiskies there in the shelves as well. They've got beers, they've got food, and it's a chance for us to get together at no cost except what you drink and eat yourself. So I think that's the fairest way we can do it all, isn't it? Like a little bit of everything. This Spiker F1 wanting to know why crazy that Jameson is not crazy at all. This is right now a launch. They've only just launched it. So they're testing the market. They're testing Ireland. They're testing the UK with it. And if it goes to plan, if it's successful, if it's demanded, then they'll look into a broader availability. The other thing to bear in mind is that this is a very complex blend. And so there are components in here that would not be considered widely available as part of any other releases. So virgin Irish oak, for example. So there's virgin Irish oak in here. So there's two different virgins in here. There's the European oak and the American virgin oak. So isn't it the ex-Irish European and American virgin oak? Or is it Irish oak? European. I thought there was Irish oak, Irish virgin oak. In any case, the virgin oak components are the ones that from a large scale may have some supply challenges. But in any case, I asked the question. I asked, will it come to America? And they said, can we sell it in Ireland first? I said, you can. Mark says, can we sniff the empty Method of Madness bottle at the Copper Still? I'm not walking around New York with an empty Method of Madness bottle. This would go I think this would do well in the United States because it's a sweeter, because you got the virgin American oak. So one of the hallmarks, of course, of bourbon is the virgin American oak. That sweet vanilla, almost sticky sweet, which we don't tend to have in Irish whiskies because we have an ex-bourbon barrel where it's that initial deposit of flavor from the wood has been absorbed by the bourbon. This, because of the virgin oak components, has more of that sweet nature to it. So I think this could be a good bridge into Irish whiskey for the bourbon crowd. Now, the proof is not as high as a bourbon. I mean, lots of bourbons are 40% too, but this is 46% or 92 proof. It's not a cask strength or super high. But again, not everybody drinks. Most people don't drink whiskey at the proof level that whiskey club people drink whiskey at. So I think 46% or 92 proof sweet whiskey like this could do quite well in the United States. My personal opinion, anyway. Yeah, like I like this. It borders just on the almost too vanilla creamy sweet. I prefer a richer, darker European oak ex sherry kind of heavily fortified wine typically, but I definitely see a place for this. Like I definitely see a place for it. All right. So what else have we got to cover? January, a month of peat. We're going to explore it all. We'll look at different brands. We'll talk about them, but we will have a focus, of course, on the Redemin Estate Distillery. By the end of January, I want you to have met and know David and Fiona Boyd Armstrong. I want you to understand their vision, how they approach things, why they do them, why they do things a certain way. I'm going to share videos that I've shot up there of their production process. We're going to share drone footage to show you the area. We'll talk about the area from a tourism standpoint. It's 45 minutes from Belfast. It's very accessible within, I mean, there's so much up there within. You've got Hinch Distillery not far away. Shorecross Whiskey's there in Redemon Estate. You could take, you've got so many tourism opportunities and whiskey opportunities in that area. So we'll talk about that. So we're packaging up each of our releases with content, videos, stories, interviews, meet the maker events, tourism. So I think we're getting in early, like with Shorecross, with Redemon Estate. I think we're getting in there early to understand and learn a little bit more about them. And on the 10th of January, in addition to all of these firsts, David and Fiona are going to share some additional news for the American market that you're going to be very interested in. So there's additional news that has not been shared anywhere, and we're going to get that news on January 10th as well. So I think it's going to be a fun month. I'm excited to dive into peat. I learned so much about peat when I hosted the podcast series for Waterford Distillery. I learned so much about Ireland's history with peat and turf, and I want to share that with you. And I want, I'm proud of the history of Ireland and where our struggles and our challenges and our successes. And I think they're all part of arriving at the moment when we have the whiskey in our hands and we sip it and we taste it. I don't think we can do that in a vacuum. Like, we do it informed and influenced by all of these things. And I think we should arrive at the moment of the tasting knowing as much as possible so that we can make our decision after tasting it and know why it tastes that way, and then say, yes, I like it. No, I don't. Maybe I got to come back to it. To me, the loving of it or the having to be guaranteed that you'll love it is secondary to the learning along the way about what you do and don't like. I think a lot of you agree with that too. I see a lot of comparisons between this single pot still and Redbreast in terms of price point, because they're kind of similar. We shouldn't underestimate the emotional attachment people have to a brand. There are Redbreast fans who won't touch Jameson, and there are Jameson fans that'll only drink Jameson, and they'll go up and down the portfolios. And a lot of Redbreast folks won't jump over to Jameson, even though they have a pot still. So Jameson doesn't need the Redbreast fans for this, to be honest. What they need is the Jameson blend drinkers to go one up or two up, go up to Black Barrel and then to this. That's what they need. You tap that market, and single pot still has a home run. That's the market. But the comparisons are inevitable, aren't they, between Redbreast 12 and this, because the price point is kind of similar. Learning new tastes and flavors is part of the journey. And Jason, you were there that day at the distillery at Redemon Estate. I saw you on the video there. And so yeah, we've got lots of videos actually from a couple of visits to Redemon that I'm going to share with you. So I'm excited about it. So that's our next one. So I say 8 releases in 2023. That's the plan. But it's all going to be subject to logistics. Right now, we have 2-ish in the pipe. So once the Redemon Estate whiskey has been tasted and enjoyed, we should be able to announce our next one. As we finish each one, I'll announce the next one. Sometimes there'll be 6 weeks between them. Now, over time, it means that we might have some sitting on our virtual shelves, and that's okay. They don't all have to sell out immediately. It's more important that they're available and that we get to enjoy them. And if you love them, wouldn't it be great if there was another bottle left on the shelf that you could go back and order a second time? And again, these are only available to Whiskey Club members. No one else in the world is going to taste the whiskeys that we release unless they're a Whiskey Club member. And I think that's special. I'm really proud that of what we're all achieving, and getting to taste, and how lucky we are. That's the mind-blowing thing of all, how privileged we are to get to taste these things. All right, so that's it, folks. I think that's everything. I think we're wrapped up. Stay tuned on Monday for an email about when we will release the tickets for the Dead Rabbit. But mark your calendars for the February the 7th. I'd love to see you there. If you can join, it'll be amazing. The Copper Still, open to everybody. Non-member of the Whiskey Club, member, it doesn't matter. Come join us. Just come hang out. Come drink a whiskey together. Let's shake hands and toast and cheers health, hopefully, and a good 2023 for us. But I'm looking forward to New York for a few days. And the Dead Rabbit has a whole series of events on that they're about to announce in the next week for their 10th anniversary. A lot of events over 10 days, from musicians to storytellers to pop-up bars coming into their bar. Great events, sessions, traditional Irish music sessions, just so much going on. So much going on. Jason asks the price, $295 plus New York taxes, Jason. $295. Chris, the quarterly tastings are for the tasting kits, the individual miniatures. So we're working on those at the moment with different brands. It's one of those kind of sliding scales of, we think we have one over the line and logistics hit us, and then another brand says, actually, I can do it faster. So we will have in the first quarter of 2023 a quarterly tasting with a tasting kit for you. And we'll have 4 of those at least in 2023. So those will be every quarter. And then the whiskeys, we hope to have more. Like, I think I'd like to do as many of the whiskeys as we can possibly get our hands on and grow the club that way. People are going to join the club just to get hold of the Shortcross whiskey. They're going to join the club just to get hold of the whiskey that comes after that as well. I know it. So that's a good thing. We grow our club, we grow our community, and that's the kind of the rising tide lifts all the boats. The bigger the community, the more releases we get. Think of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. It's a model I think about often. I model a lot of what we're doing on them, and I'm inspired by them. I think we can do some of our things better, but we can be informed by a lot of what they do really well. But they have a rotation, what they call an outturn of whiskey regularly. And I think they have 100 plus bottles a year come out from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, but we're a long way away from that. They have 30,000 members too, and they've been in business for 40 years. But yeah, I think overall, I think the more whiskeys, the better. And again, I will share. I got asked this question, like, do you have to buy all of them? Of course you don't. You don't have to buy any whiskeys you don't want to. Your club membership doesn't oblige you to do anything. But all I want to do is bring new, interesting people, brands, distilleries, stories to the table so that you have a choice outside of the regular whiskeys that you might have, because a lot of you want to go deeper into the world of Irish whiskey, and that's the reason we exist. Am I back? I'm back again. I have to go visit the vaults actually, Tom. It's on my list. I have to go visit the vaults. Yeah, I just put another quarter there on the internet, Stacey, so Elon Musk can stay and find furniture and fast cars. Lisa says, all sounds amazing. See somebody at the meetup on the 7th. If anyone's on the fence about joining the club, it's insanely valuable in many ways. Do it. Thank you, Lisa. Whiskey Bus, second. I have a message into Anthony. Anthony, if you're on the line here, I think you were here earlier. I think you checked in earlier. I saw a message from Irish Whiskey Auctions. If that's you, Anthony, wave and tell us you're alive. I know you're very busy coming to the end of your auction, which ends tomorrow. Irish Whiskey Auctions ends tomorrow. For those of you interested in bidding on things, we're trying to get the Whiskey Bus sorted. I think it's going to be August. Like I mentioned this last week. I just think that with these events and the schedules we have, I don't think we can do it before August again. It's It's a huge undertaking. I look back now and I don't know how we did the first one. I don't know how we did the first one, but we will do the we will be doing it again. We will be doing it again. As soon as we have dates, we will let you know. We could catch the Scotch Club with a Stories and Sips castle. Now we're talking. It's all about the castles, isn't it? Kristen, I have no answers for you. I would love to give you dates, love to, but I have nothing. I don't even know. Like I have zero dates on the whiskey bus. It's one of those things where I just have to hold hands up and say we cannot get to it. Like we just cannot get to it right now, and that's disappointing. But Anthony runs 5 businesses, and there are so many factors that are with travel and other our whiskey club and our releases that are just affecting this. It is a massive undertaking, and it needs us to do it right now. Like it's not something where I can just balloon somebody in, airdrop somebody in to say, hey, fire up a whiskey company, a whiskey travel company. It needs us right now, because the reason the Whiskey Bus #1 was successful was because of Anthony and me and our connections and the way we structured it. I don't say that to be big headed, only that it was the mixture of the personalities and our work ethic and the ability of how we did it that pulled it off virtually without any issue whatsoever. And that has to be repeated. So I don't have any answers for you, and I'm sorry, but I hate letting people down. As soon as we have the answers, we will let you know. And every time we mention the bus, guess what happens? 30 comments. This date works for me. I'm out at this date is the whiskey bus. I can do this. I can't do that. So we have to kind of close our ears to when people can do it. And just like, and like we had a couple of dates in mind on this, right? And I had a conversation with one particular distillery that has to be part of this. And they said, oh no, we can do nothing that month. And we said, oh, there goes that whole plan. So then we had to go back to the drawing board. So that's what happens. Like 9 distilleries last time, 16 pubs, 63 whiskeys. That was it. I don't know how we did it. Like it's a full-time job for 2 or 3 people to run that full-time job. Guys, you can keep telling me what is coming up left, right, and center, and it won't affect what we can do, because all we can do is go to the distilleries once we have bandwidth and try and structure it, and a lot will depend on their bandwidth and their availability. So yeah. Honestly, the variables you throw at me for this whiskey bus, like maybe we should have it in cooler weather so we can have fireplaces. Honestly, Jason, are you mad? Imagine the list of the variables that we have to sit down with now and go, well, look, Jason needs fireplaces, like, so we can't do it. We can't do it in the summer months. All right, that's out. Okay. Stacey's got the Irish Festival. All right, that's out. August is out. It's impossible. Impossible. Selfishly, Anthony and myself have to start with when are we available, and then we have to go to the distilleries and say when are they available, and then we have to go to you and say here's when we're doing it. So look, Anthony, if you're out there, give us some proof of life, and we get this done. I'm going to stop reading these comments of when you're over or when you're doing things. I got to stop it. I don't need a scheduling assistant at all. I'm fine. It's when we layer in an entire other business. That's the problem. That's when it gets tricky. Like, can we just layer on a tourism business on top of this, all these other bits and pieces? Whiskey treks, imagine it. Lisa, honestly, you're throwing gasoline on the fire here for us. Actually really enjoying this single pot still, this Jameson. Really enjoying it. Anthony's hanging me out to dry, says Scott. I'm on my own. No, Anthony's in. But he decided to buy a pub in the middle of everything. And now he runs a pub as well as his auction business and his satellite business and his every other business he's involved in. There's no end to it. No end to it. Whiskey hikes, stories and trips. Lads, like, you're off your rockers, the whole lot of you. Tony, we are the tour company. I will summarize this as succinctly as possible. We started the planning for the Whiskey Bus with a tour company, and we quickly discovered how challenging it would be to deliver an experience worthy of your investment of time and dollars in an experience that we could all say that was incredible or that would be the best thing in the world. We quickly realized, you know what? The tour companies are so bound, restricted, potentially inflexible, have so many guardrails and things in place that don't necessarily allow what we're trying to do at a price point we can do it. The reason it all worked this time, the reason that all 9 distilleries that we did this with want us to come back, the reason that everyone who was on the Whiskey Bus wants to do it again, the reason that 500 plus bottles of whiskey were purchased and shipped back to the United States from you all was because we did it. That's it. The way we did it is how it has to be done. Now we can create that as use that as a template and bring others on board to help us with it. But at this early stage, we can't just farm it out to someone and say, go deliver this experience. I'm telling you, the best crack we had was unplanned. And when you got a tour company, you don't have those unplanned things. The reason we got to say to the bus driver, hey, listen, you know the way we're supposed to be going here now this morning, I need you to take a detour because there's a whiskey company standing on the side of the road with a case of whiskey that's going to join us on the bus and we're going to drink whiskey on the bus. Do you mind? The bus driver said, no bother at all, Barry. That's no problem. And off he went and drove us there. That doesn't happen with a tour company. So this was a kind of a lightning in a bottle that we managed to capture, and we know why it worked. And I'm not going to run another Whiskey Bus that's anything less than what Whiskey Bus number 1 was. That's it. It's just not going to be done. We'll either do nothing or we do it again the same or better. So that creates time constraints and pressures and expectations, etc. But like, that's it. That's the way we have to do it. Sinead. Stacey, you nailed it. If the Whiskey Bus tour was through a tour company, it would have been half the experiences for triple the cost. 100%. Like we haven't gone into details about all that. Like, but I mean, Anthony and myself for a week each on that bus. I mean, what would it have cost us to replace us, to get people to do it the same way? I just don't think it's possible. Like, I just don't think it's feasible, you know, like it has to be done our way. It has to be. You can ask me all the questions about why don't I do this version of it or that version of it, you know. Bob, why do you do it in prime time? Bob, there's a very simple answer to this. Anthony and I had a 2-week window where neither of us were booked up. And it was the only humanly possible time. Anthony had no auction in August last year, and I had that time available, and my wife was traveling. It was the only, like, it cannot be overstated how the stars aligned for that to happen, which is also why it's so hard for us to replicate it, because all the stars aren't in the same place again. Bloody galaxy. So we're trying to figure it out. We'll get there. I mean, we left that Whiskey Bus elated, shattered, inspired, exhausted, everything, right? It ran the gamut of emotions and feelings and pride and joy and tears and all kinds. And we Anthony and I sat down for a pint and we said to each other, we know that if we both had no other business or were not tied up with everything else we've already committed to, that there would be a whiskey bus that we could fill every month of the year, all year round. And it has not left our minds. So it's there. We've got the proof of concept. We'll get there. We'll get another one and another one. And yeah, like a lot of these things are about, like, all the things have to be in place, don't they? Like the timing is everything. I don't know. It's just what an old, that adage of timing is everything. But it's so true. Like, timing is absolutely everything. Everything. And Jason says, as the club grows, the opportunities will decrease. No, as the club grows, the opportunities increase. Because the more members we have, we'll do 2 casks, we'll do multiple bottlings, we'll do more. Like the club was never designed to be an in-person club, right? That we all get into a room together. The club was designed to be a virtual thing that we would get access to whiskeys and meet people virtually. The in-person is a kind of an add-on bonus. Let's do it when we can. But Jason, the more the club grows up to a point, the more opportunities we'll actually have. We'll cap the club eventually. Like we'll cap it at a number, but until we kind of weigh up which direction it goes and how we can, like, we'll take on people and what have you to support it if we have to. But the more it grows, the more opportunities there are. The only reason we're looking at 8 whiskeys this year, and come back to me in 12 months' time and see if I've done it, but it won't be for lack of trying. The only reason we can do that is because there are enough brands who want to do things with us. That didn't happen in year 1 or in month 1 of the whiskey club. Like, we didn't have that relationship, or people didn't realize what we were doing, or didn't understand maybe the value of this community, or saw the opportunity to tell the story through the whiskeys and through the tasting. So no, it'll just grow. It'll grow for all of us. Have another pour. I mean, like, I think you can see, like, it stresses me. Like this, it stresses me not being able to do it all. And I want to do it all, but I also, there's bits of it I can't let go. Like, I can't just let go of a whiskey bus and give it over to people. I will, but I can't right now. Like, I can't just give the whiskey bus to anybody. Like, I could, and you can do a whiskey bus without me, and I'm not saying I'm the only reason a whiskey bus is successful, but rather we actually proved the formula out with me and Anthony and this community together. But it does stress me that I don't have the next whiskey bus ready to go. But I suppose we can't do it all. And you're right, Bob. Have another sip. That'll probably cure everything for me, right? Chris is still amazed at how this club has grown. We're growing like a rash that there's no pill for. But it will all work out, Bob. You're right. It will. But I want to get, like, when I started Stories and Sips in 2016, which is a long time ago. So before, it was a club, and it was just, I didn't know really what it was. It was kind of we did a few tastings. I told a few stories, a bit of a podcast, YouTube, a little bit of everything. It was kind of undefined what it was. It was just kind of a passion project around Irish whiskey. The stories and the sips were always 2 parts of a 3-legged stool, and the third part was always trips. And in 2018, I took people to Ireland. I've done some private trips in Ireland with people that we haven't kind of publicized or talked about. It was more, people reached out and said, like, will you do this trip and will you help us and bring us around to locations? And I did. And then the plan was in 2020, like end of 2019, I was already planning the trip aspect for 2020 of what the trips piece would look like for Stories and Sips. Before there was a club or anything, I thought there's a tour opportunity here, or like we can bring people to Ireland, or we can do something. So there was always going to be stories, sips, and trips. And the pandemic changed all that. So the whiskey bus then was this first kind of can we get back at it? And doing it with Anthony was like the best fun. And we had a great rapport and a working relationship and just amazing. One of those kind of rare opportunities. And Anthony will say the same. And he said it to me. And I just, one of those unusual, rare friendships turned business relationship that there was this instant respect and trust both ways, which was amazing. And it meant that I never worried what Anthony was doing. Anthony never worried what I was doing. We both knew that the bits we said we'd do, we were going to figure it out and we'd have the crack around it. And so that made this project so appealing. And I wouldn't want to do it again without Anthony. Like, it's gotta be that. So trips were always part of it. I think that it'll become more of a thing. Like it'll grow, but these things take time. But it will work its way in. Like it will work its way in. So trips, I think, I talk about my prediction for whiskey tourism being a thing that's going to happen. Well, we're going to be part of that. Like Whiskey Bus and some other ideas are going to be part of that. So there are some other whiskey tourism opportunities that I think we can do. So it's there. It's there for the taking. We want to do it. We want to do it. Thanks for the support. But I'm passionate about this. Like I'm passionate. I'm passionate about getting it right. I don't want to let anybody down. And I would hate there to be a bad word said about anything we did. It's one of the things I try and pride myself on, and maybe pride is a bad thing, but it's more like we won't let someone down. Like we'll make it right, or we'll do it. And we maybe got too excited coming out of Whiskey Bus #1 that we were like, okay, there's a Whiskey Bus #2 coming. We got excited, and we were just kind of, the momentum carried us along. But it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. You're all very good. Like, look, you're all so supportive and helpful, and I appreciate your support, honestly. We will be delegating some of the responsibilities of Whiskey Bus #2. There's somebody that's going to come on board with us when we do it. He's in the wings waiting. He's eagerly waiting, and he will be an amazing help for us, and you'll all love him. And I am going to get this. I'm going to take charge on this Whiskey Bus piece and get Anthony on board with it. All right. No, there'll be no stress. You're right. Like if there's stress, it's not fun. No, we'll keep the fun in it. As long as you're happy with the way the club is going, you're getting value for your $20. You're getting the whiskeys you want. You're having the crack along the way. You know where I am. If I'm letting you down, reach out and let me know. But if this is value for you, God bless you all. You're making my day. If it works for all of us, it's definitely working for the whiskey companies. They're loving it. So we'll keep on going. We'll keep on keeping on. All right, so that's it, folks. Sin A, as we say in Irish, that's it. If you enjoyed tonight, just click the like button. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Just click on the subscribe link. You'll get an email tomorrow letting you know when the tickets for the Dead Rabbit go on sale. Once they're gone, they're gone. There'll be no tickets needed for the Copper still, but I might create an online event page or a Facebook event for you to click and say, I'll be attending. Just to get some idea of numbers for the Copper still, in case they need to hire another chef for all the sliders and wings they need for the hungry 800 people who turn up. We'll figure all that out. So leave that with me, and I'll get that sorted tomorrow after a good sleep. As simple as that. Oh no, that's the best. We're going to put this up on the website. I cancelled Hulu and kept Stories and Sips. Now look at that. Feel free to cancel Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Paramount, anything else that takes your money. Oh, David, it'd be great to see you in New York. Hopefully you'll be there. It'll be great. We'd love to see you after the Whiskey Bus. That'll be great. Good stuff. All right, folks. Sinead, thanks as always. We will be back here next Sunday night for another every Sunday at 7:00 Eastern, as much as possible. When we're in New York, I'll be in New York that Sunday night. I'll probably do on that Sunday night from New York before our Monday night Dead Rabbit event. But we'll have one every Sunday. This is called the shabeen. We call it the shabeen. It's kind of an illegal, illicit pub that shouldn't exist where we drink whiskey and we have no liquor license to be pouring whiskey, but we pour it anyway. And there's lots of shebeens all over Ireland. Every village and town has a shebeen. So this is the shebeen every Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, chance to get together, talk about Irish whiskey. Sinead, thanks a million, folks. Kristen's rent is increasing $275 a month and she refuses to cancel Stories and Sips. Maybe, housing first, then Stories and Sips. We'll make an exception for housing. Sláinte, everybody. All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the group and online over the next few days, and I'll send you an email. Sláinte, Happy New Year. May this be the best year of your lives. Health, happiness, good fortune for you, your family, and good whiskey in your glass. That's all we can wish for you. Sláinte, everybody.